June 22, 1986, Mexico City, the Estadio Azteca. 114,580 people packed into one stadium. The air was thick, hot, and heavy. The pitch, the playing field, was terrible. Thousands of small pieces of grass and dirt had been thrown together just days before. Not a pitch for beautiful football. Not a pitch for history. But history does not care about conditions. History happened anyway, and on that afternoon, Diego Armando Maradona became both a cheat and a genius, sometimes in the same breath. 5 feet 5 inches tall. Born poor, raised in a dirt house with no running water, and in one match, he did something the world had never seen before. Then he did something else the world has never seen since. Today, you are not just learning about a football match. You are learning about a moment when a nation's pain, a man's ambition, and a game's beauty all collided at once. And you are practicing your English listening skills at the same time. So sit back, listen carefully. And let me take you to Mexico, 1986. Childhood in Buenos Aires. Diego Maradona was born on October 30th, 1960, in Lanús, a poor suburb of Buenos Aires, Argentina. But he grew up in Villa Fiorito, a neighborhood of dirt roads and tin-roofed shacks. A shack is a small, poorly built house. His family's shack had one room. Rain came through the cracks, the narrow openings in the roof. They slept on mattresses, soft beds, on the dirt floor. No electricity, no running water. He was the fifth of 8 children. His father, known as Chitoro, worked in a corn mill, a factory that grinds corn. His mother, Dalma, stayed home and raised the children. They often did not have enough food. Diego once said, "Sometimes dinner was just bread and water, but my mother made it feel like a feast." They had very little money, but they had each other. From the very beginning, Diego had one thing: a football. His uncle gave him a leather ball when he was 3 years old. He slept with it, he ate with it. He kicked it against walls, against fences, against anything that stood still. His mother once said, "He kicked the ball so much that the walls of our house started to crack." By the time he was 8, people in his neighborhood knew something special was happening. The boy was different. He moved with the ball like the ball was attached to his foot by a string. He could dribble, run with the ball, through a crowd without losing control. A local scout, a person who finds talented players, watched him play on a dirt field. Diego scored 4 goals that day. The scout invited him to try out for a club. But Diego's father had to borrow shoes for him to wear. His professional debut, his first game as a professional player, came on October 20th, 1976. He was 15 years old, 10 days before his 16th birthday. He played for Argentinos Juniors, a small club in Buenos Aires. The stadium was small. The crowd was small. But the moment was not small. He entered the match in the second half. He touched the ball. He passed. He moved. And the crowd, small as it was, knew they had seen something new. They started shouting his name. "Diego! Diego!" Let me tell you a story that shows who he was. When Diego was 12 years old, he played for a local youth team called Los Cebolitas, the Little Onions. Before one match, the coach told the team to warm up, to stretch and run to prepare. But Diego did not warm up. He sat on the ball. He waited. The coach asked him, "Diego, why aren't you warming up?" The boy looked up and said, "The ball does the work. I just guide it." He was 12 years old, and he already understood something that most players never learn: that talent is not something you force, it is something you trust. By the time he was 17, he was the leading scorer, the player who scores the most goals in the Argentine league. By the time he was 18, he was playing for the national team. By the time he was 21, he had moved to Barcelona for a world record transfer fee, an enormous amount of money paid to buy a player from another club. But success was not easy. It never is. In Barcelona, things went wrong. He got injured, a bad tackle, a rough move to take the ball, broke his ankle. He got sick, a disease called hepatitis, an inflammation of the liver, kept him out for months. The club was chaotic, full of confusion and conflict. The politics were exhausting. He was young. He was far from home. The pressure was crushing. It destroyed his confidence. And then, in 1984, Barcelona sold him. He moved to Napoli, in southern Italy. The transfer fee was £6.9 million, another world record. People said he was overpriced, too expensive for his value. They said he was damaged goods, broken by injuries. They said he would never be the same player. But here is the truth. Napoli was not a top club. They had never won the Italian league, Serie A, the top football league in Italy. They were the underdogs, the team that everyone expects to lose. And Maradona, the short boy from the dirt house, loved being the underdog. Napoli, a god in a new land, asked her if Naples was a poor city. It was crowded, noisy, chaotic. Garbage filled the streets. Unemployment, the number of people without jobs, was over 20%. The rich north of Italy looked down on the poor south. They called it Africa. The people of Naples felt humiliated. They were underdogs too. And when Maradona arrived, they saw themselves in him. His first season, Napoli finished 8th. Not good. But the next year, 1987, something incredible happened. The team needed to beat Fiorentina in the final match to win the title. The stadium, the San Paolo, was packed. Maradona stepped up to take a free kick, a kick given after a foul, where no one can block the ball from close range. The ball curved, bent, over the defensive wall and into the top corner of the net. The stadium shook. People cried. He led Napoli to their first Serie A title, the championship of Italy. The city exploded with joy. People danced in the streets. They set off fireworks. They named their children Diego. He led Napoli to another title in 1990. Then the UEFA Cup, a European club competition, in 1989. He became a god in Naples. His face was painted on walls. His name was in songs. Children wore his number 10 shirt to bed. Even the local mafia respected him. One mob boss later said he was like a son to us. But while he was rising in Italy, something dark was happening back home. Ask, the Falklands War. Pain and pride, Ascus. In 1982, Argentina and the United Kingdom went to war over the Falkland Islands, or Las Islas Malvinas, as Argentinians call them. The islands are 300 miles off the coast of Argentina. Small, windswept, swept by strong winds, with sheep and rocky hills. Argentina claimed them. Britain controlled them. The war lasted 74 days. It was brutal. 649 Argentine soldiers died. 255 British soldiers died. Many were young, just 19 or 20 years old. Argentina lost. For the people of Argentina, the pain was deep. It was not just about territory, land owned by a country. It was about pride, about dignity, about a small country that felt pushed around by a powerful one. The war was not in the past. It was still bleeding inside them. And now, 4 years later, the World Cup draw had done something that felt like fate. Argentina and England would meet in the quarterfinal, the round before the semifinal. Jorge Luis Burruchaga, one of Maradona's teammates, said it simply: "We were aware we would not bring back the dead of the Falklands War, but we were aware we would bring some happiness." Happiness. That is what the nation needed. That is what Maradona gave them. That is the context. The situation that helps you understand something. That is the weight. That is what was in the air on June 22, 1986, when 114,580 people sat in the Estadio Azteca and waited. The first half was tense. Both teams played carefully. No goals, no big chances. The heat was terrible. Players drank water every few minutes. The pitch was terrible. The ball bounced unevenly. The pressure was enormous. You could feel it from the stands. The English team was strong. They had Gary Lineker, who would become the tournament's top scorer. They had Peter Shilton, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, 6 feet 1 inch tall. They had Terry Butcher, a defender with a bandaged head from a previous match. They believed they could win. Argentina had Maradona. That was enough. But the first half ended 0-0. Nothing decided. Asterisk, the hand of God. Asterisk. The second half began. The 51st minute, Steve Hodge, an English midfielder, tried to clear the ball to kick it away from his goal, but his foot caught it awkwardly and the ball looped backward, flew in a high curve toward the goal. Maradona saw it. Peter Shilton saw it too. Now, here is something you need to understand. Peter Shilton was 6 feet 1 inch tall. Maradona was 5 feet 5 inches tall. That is a difference of 8 inches 20 centimeters. Shilton was taller, stronger, and he was the goalkeeper. Under the rules, a goalkeeper can use his hands inside the penalty area, the rectangle in front of the goal. Outfield players like Maradona cannot. But Maradona did not care about height. He did not care about logic. He ran toward the ball. Shilton ran toward the ball, and Maradona got there first, but not with his head. He used his hand, his left hand. He punched the ball into the net, a handball. For outfield players like Maradona, using your hand to touch the ball is strictly against the rules. Only the goalkeeper is allowed to use his hands, and only inside his own penalty area. It was fast. It was hidden. The referee, Ali bin Nasser from Tunisia, did not see it. The linesman, the assistant referee who watches the offside line, Bogdan Dachev from Bulgaria, did not signal, did not give any sign. Goal. Argentina won. England 0. The English players surrounded the referee. They screamed. They pointed. They knew. The ball had been handled. It was illegal. Against the rules. It was fraud. Cheating to gain an unfair advantage. But the referee did not change his decision. The goal stood. Later, Maradona would say something that became famous. He said, "A little with the head of Maradona, and a little with the hand of God." The hand of God. That is what the world called it, and the name stuck. But here's the truth that most people do not know. Maradona himself said later that using his hand was not planned. He said, "It wasn't my plan. The action happened so fast. The linesman did not see me putting my hand in." And his teammates? They did not celebrate at first. Maradona said, "I was waiting for my teammates to embrace me, and no one came. I told them, 'Come hug me, or the referee is not going to allow it.' So they hugged him." And the goal stood. Terry Butcher, the English defender, never forgot it. Years later, he said, "I still feel the injustice, the unfairness now. People tell you to let it go. But we felt we could go all the way that year. It was probably the best piece of fraud you will ever see, and he got away with it." Gary Lineker, England's best player, said, "I think the linesman saw the hand of God and lost his nerve, became too afraid to make a decision. He knew Diego had handled that ball, but he got away with it." The English team was furious. The English fans were furious. The whole country felt cheated. But wait, before you judge him, you need to know what happened next. Something that changed the rules of football forever. Something that made the world forget the cheating, at least for a moment. Asterisk, the goal of the century, the 55th minute. The clock showed 55 minutes. Argentina led 1-0. Hector Enrique, an Argentine midfielder, passed the ball to Maradona near the halfway line, the center of the field. Maradona was facing his own goal. He turned, and then he began to run. He ran around 60 yards, about 55 meters, more than half the length of the field. 10 seconds. 5 outfield players, not including the goalkeeper, and 1 goalkeeper to beat. He ran past Peter Beardsley, a quick move to the left, past Peter Reed, a shift to the right, past Terry Butcher, a turn, a fake, pretending to go one way. Butcher came again. Maradona turned again, past Terry Fenwick, another fake, another shift. And then, in front of the goal, he faced Peter Shilton, the goalkeeper. Shilton came out. Maradona faked left. Shilton went down. Maradona went right. And then, he put the ball into the net. Terry Butcher, the same defender who had chased him for 60 yards, said later, "I tried to foul him during that run. I tried to pull him down, but he was like water. You could not hold him." Gary Lineker watched it happen. He was on the field. Later, he said something remarkable. "When Diego scored that second goal against us, I felt like applauding. I had never felt like that before. It was impossible to score such a beautiful goal." The stadium exploded. 114,580 people, most of them neutral Mexicans, stood and cheered. They had just seen something that had never been done before. It is often called the goal of the century, the best goal ever scored. Maradona later explained, "I made the run to pass the ball to Valdano, but when I got to the goal area, they surrounded me and I had no space, so I just kept going." He kept going. That is the story of his life. Ask the end of the match. Ask England scored later. Gary Lineker in the 80th minute used his head across into the net. 2-1. But they could not find the equalizer, the goal that makes the score 2-2. Argentina won. After the match, Steve Hodge, the English midfielder whose mistake started the hand of God, went to Maradona and asked for his shirt, his jersey. Maradona gave it to him. That shirt, years later, was sold at auction, a public sale where people bid for more than £7 million. It became the most expensive piece of sports memorabilia, collectible sports items, in history. Maradona went on to win the World Cup. Argentina beat West Germany 3-2 in the final. He lifted the trophy. He was the best player in the tournament. He was the best player in the world, asterisk, after the glory. But the story does not end there. Life after 1986 was difficult for Maradona. In 1991, he failed a drug test in Italy. Cocaine. He was banned, not allowed to play, for 15 months. He left the stadium in tears. Cameras captured him crying, his face twisted with shame. In 1994, at the World Cup in the United States, he scored a goal against Greece. He ran to a camera, eyes wild with fury. 4 days later, he failed another drug test. He was sent home. The world watched him fall. He struggled with addiction, a strong need to do something, even when it harms you. He struggled with his weight. He weighed over 200 pounds. He had heart surgery. He fought addiction for years. He was a genius on the field. He was a mess off it. Both are true. Both are real. In 2015, almost 30 years after that match, Maradona did something unexpected. He traveled to Tunisia. He went to the home of Ali bin Nasser, the referee who had allowed the Hand of God goal. He gave the referee a signed Argentina jersey, a shirt with his name and number. He hugged him. He called him my eternal friend. The referee later said, "I was waiting for the linesman to give me a hint." But he did not signal for a handball. I thought Maradona had headed the ball. He was wrong. He knew he was wrong. But the moment had passed and history had been written. Diego Armando Maradona died on November 25, 2020. He was 60 years old. His heart failed him. The same heart that had carried a nation, that had beaten with joy and pain and genius and failure. It finally stopped. But the goals did not stop. The Hand of God. The goal of the century. They are still there. They will always be there. Asterisk, what Maradona teaches us. Here's what Diego Maradona teaches us. These lessons are not just about football. They are about life. Listen carefully. Lesson number 1. Asterisk, talent alone is not enough. Maradona had more natural talent than almost anyone in history. But in the 1990 World Cup final, he played with a swollen, puffed up from injury ankle. He could barely run. Yet he still created Argentina's only real chance. That was not talent. That was will, inner strength to keep trying. What made the difference was his inner drive, a strong feeling inside that pushes you to succeed. Lesson number 2. Asterisk, you will be judged by your worst moment and your best moment. Asterisk, Maradona will always be remembered for 2 things, the Hand of God and the goal of the century. One was cheating. One was genius. Both are true. You do not have to be perfect to be great. You just have to be real. Lesson number 3. Asterisk, understand the context before you judge. Asterisk, the Hand of God was not just a football moment. It was born from war, from pain, from a nation's need for symbolic revenge. Revenge that is only for show, not actual harm. Think of it this way. The handball was a tiny, unfair victory. But for Argentina, it felt like winning back a tiny piece of what they had lost in the war. Maradona himself said, "It was a nice feeling, like some sort of symbolic revenge against the English." You cannot understand the action without understanding the context, the situation that helps you understand something. Lesson number 4. Asterisk, greatness and failure can live in the same person. Asterisk, Maradona was a genius on the field and a mess off it. Both are real. That is the most human thing about him. We all have light and dark inside us. Lesson number 5. Asterisk, do not wait for the perfect conditions. Asterisk, the pitch was bad. The heat was high. The enemy was strong. Yet Maradona kept moving. He kept running. And he did something that the world had never seen before. You can do the same. Not with a football maybe, but with your own goals. Take action today, not tomorrow. Ask. Closing asterisk. So was he a cheat or a genius? Both. And that is why his story stays alive. If you want more stories that teach you English and change how you see the world, subscribe now. Because next week, we meet someone else who rose from nothing and changed everything. And tell me in the comments, was Maradona a cheat, a genius, or both? I want to read every single answer. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.